In front of Buckingham Palace, a drunken German tourist was about to make the most epic mistake of his life. With hundreds of smartphones aimed at him and a crowd holding its breath, no one could have imagined that one of Hollywood's biggest stars would emerge from the shadows to prevent an international incident. What happened that day would forever change Klaus's life and go viral within minutes. The sun shone over the majestic Buckingham Palace, its golden walls reflecting light like a giant mirror in the heart of London. The crowd of tourists gathered in front of the gates, smartphones in hand, all eager to capture the perfect moment. A young royal guard stood out against the imposing backdrop, his impeccable posture and bright red uniform contrasting with the bustle around him. His eyes were fixed on the horizon, unblinking, as he held firmly onto his traditional rifle. Years of rigorous training had prepared him to remain as still as a statue, regardless of the circumstances. What no one expected was that, on this seemingly ordinary afternoon, this dedicated guardian of royalty would face one of the greatest tests of his career. And even more surprisingly, one of Hollywood's biggest stars would be there to witness it all. Amidst the camera flashes and excited murmurs of visitors, the air began to grow tense. What was about to happen would completely change the course of that ordinary day in front of the palace. Subscribe to the channel and leave a like to access more stories like this. Amid the tourist frenzy, a peculiar figure emerged, drawing attention wherever he went. Klaus, a middle-aged German tourist, was staggering through the palace courtyard with a beer bottle half hidden in a paper bag. His Hawaiian shirt, covered in suspicious stains, fluttered in the wind as he approached the restricted area. Other visitors began to notice his erratic behavior. Klaus was speaking loudly in German, interspersing it with slurred and nearly incomprehensible English. His cargo shorts, filled with pockets, clinked with more bottles with each awkward step he took. What was most striking was not just his disheveled appearance or his visibly altered state, but rather his fixed gaze on the royal guard. With each sip he took, his confidence seemed to grow, and a mischievous grin began to form on his alcohol-flushed face. It was evident that, in his drunken mind, he was about to create what he considered to be the funniest moment in the palace's history. Klaus approached the guard with unsteady steps, stopping less than 2 meters away from him. "Hey, mein friend!" he exclaimed loudly, raising his bottle in a solitary toast. The guard maintained his unwavering posture, eyes fixed on the horizon. "You Brits are so serious," Klaus continued, swirling around the guard like a drunken satellite. "Come on, just a tiny smile." He began to make exaggerated faces, provoking nervous laughter from the gathering crowd. An American lady whispered to her husband, "This isn't going to end well." Other tourists began to film the scene, anticipating that something interesting was about to happen. Klaus, encouraged by the attention he was receiving, decided to elevate his personal show. He started to comically imitate the guard's posture, marching back and forth with exaggerated stiffness. "Look at me! I'm an English guard," he declared, stumbling slightly over his own feet. The guard remained as still as a granite statue, but anyone paying attention could notice a subtle tension in his jaw. The crowd grew larger, and among the spectators, a familiar figure watched the scene with increasing concern, though no one had yet noticed Keanu Reeves among them. The atmosphere in the palace courtyard changed drastically. What began as some nervous laughter turned into a tense silence, broken only by Klaus's drunken comments and the incessant sound of phones capturing everything. A teenager tugged at her mother's sleeve, whispering, "Isn't that John Wick?" More people began to notice Keanu Reeves in the crowd, but attention quickly returned to the drama unfolding in front of the guard. "This is getting dangerous," murmured a voice in the crowd. Other tourists started to step back, creating an ever-widening semicircle around the scene. Klaus, oblivious to the growing collective discomfort, continued his personal performance. A nearby tour guide tried to intervene. "Sir, please keep your distance from the guard." But his words were swallowed by Klaus's uncontrolled laughter, who was now marching in circles, imitating a caricatured version of the royal guard. Keanu Reeves stepped forward, his serious expression reflecting the gravity of the situation. He could see what others were also noticing. The guard's hand tightening almost imperceptibly around the rifle, a subtle signal that the situation was about to cross a dangerous line. The decisive moment came when Klaus, in a sudden burst of liquid courage, reached his hand toward the guard's rifle. "Let me hold it for just a second." He laughed, his fingers inches from the historic weapon. The crowd collectively held its breath. Smartphones trembled in the hands of onlookers, while some covered their eyes but peeked through their fingers. A child shouted, "No!" her voice echoing through the silent courtyard. Klaus, misinterpreting the silence as approval, moved even closer. The scent of beer was noticeable even from a distance as he leaned dangerously forward. "It's just a quick photo with the rifle, right?" he insisted, his words blending into a confusion of German and English. His fingers brushed the polished metal of the weapon, and in that instant, time seemed to freeze. The cell phone cameras captured the exact moment when the guard's previously impassive face transformed into a mask of professional determination. The sound of the beer bottle shattering on the ground was like a starter's gun for the chaos about to unfold. Klaus, in his drunken excitement, grasped the barrel of the rifle, tugging it slightly. "Come on, buddy, don't be so serious," were his last words before everything changed. The tension in the air was so thick it could be cut with a knife. Keanu Reeves, still anonymous to most, stepped forward, his eyes fixed on the unfolding scene, ready to intervene in what promised to be one of the most memorable moments ever witnessed in front of Buckingham Palace. In a fluid and precise movement, the royal guard spun the rifle, freeing it from Klaus's hands. His voice, deep and authoritative, sliced through the air like a blade. "Step back immediately!" The command reverberated through the courtyard, causing even the birds to take flight. Klaus, caught off guard, stumbled backward, finally realizing the gravity of his actions. His flushed face paled as two Metropolitan Police officers emerged from the crowd, approaching quickly. It was at that moment that Keanu Reeves entered the scene. With the same grace he displayed in his action movies, he moved through the crowd. "Gentlemen," his calm voice drew everyone's attention, "perhaps we can resolve this peacefully." The officers hesitated, instantly recognizing the actor. Klaus, still confused, looked from side to side, trying to process the surreal presence of a Hollywood star in his moment of international embarrassment. "Our friend here," Keanu gestured toward Klaus, "clearly made a misjudgment, but I believe he already understands the seriousness of the situation." His tone was gentle but firm, carrying that natural authority that characterized him both on and off screen. The royal guard had returned to his original position, impassive as if nothing had happened, although his eyes remained vigilant. The officers, after a moment of consideration, nodded in agreement. "I'll escort you to a taxi," Keanu offered, placing a hand on Klaus's shoulder. "I think we've had enough excitement for today." The crowd watched in reverent silence as the unlikely duo walked away from the palace, Klaus now completely sober and wide-eyed. In the taxi, Klaus was in shock, alternating between moments of deep embarrassment and disbelief at sitting next to Keanu Reeves. "I can't believe," he murmured repeatedly, shaking his head. "You know," Keanu began, breaking the uncomfortable silence, "I've seen a lot of crazy scenes in London, but this..." He let out a small smile. "You really managed to create a unique moment." Klaus sank even deeper into the back seat of the taxi. "I'm a complete idiot," he admitted in his now surprisingly clearer English. "I could have been arrested, or worse. My wife is going to kill me when she finds out." "Well, we all make mistakes," Keanu replied, his tone understanding. "The important thing is to learn from them. And maybe," he added with a twinkle in his eye, "cut back on the beer during sightseeing tours." The taxi stopped in front of Klaus's hotel. Before getting out, he turned to Keanu. "Why did you help me? You don't know me. I was making a fool of myself. Sometimes people just need someone to keep them from turning a bad moment into something much worse," Keanu replied. "Besides," he added with a smile, "I've learned over the years that a little kindness can completely change the course of a story." Klaus nodded, grabbing his hotel card. Just as he was about to exit the taxi, Keanu called out to him. Hey, one last thing. Klaus turned. Maybe it's best to avoid Buckingham Palace for the next, let's say, 10 years? For the first time since the incident, Klaus genuinely laughed. Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Mr. Reeves. Thank you very much. The next morning, Klaus woke up with a throbbing headache and fragmented memories of the previous day. His phone kept vibrating with notifications, dozens of messages from friends and family in Germany. Have you seen the videos? Everyone asked. With trembling fingers, he opened the first link sent. There he was, staggering in front of the Royal Guard, followed by the surreal intervention of Keanu Reeves. The video had already amassed millions of views and was being shared across all social media. My God, he whispered, watching his drunken performance go viral online. The comments ranged from harsh criticisms to praise for the absurd luck of being saved by John Wick himself. His wife Helga sent a short message. I saw the videos. We'll talk when you get back. Klaus gulped, imagining the conversation waiting for him in Munich. While having breakfast in his hotel room, avoiding any human contact, he received an unexpected delivery. It was a small package with a note. I thought this might help with the hangover. And don't worry, people will soon find something new to comment on. KR. Inside the package was a headache remedy, a bottle of mineral water, and, ironically, a miniature Buckingham Palace guard. Subscribe to the channel and like this to access more stories like this. 3 months later, in a cozy cafe in Munich, Klaus was showing the little guard to his friends, now a relic telling his viral story. The incident had transformed into one of those stories that, while embarrassing, end up becoming legendary. You know, he said, twirling his coffee cup, that day changed something in me. His friends leaned in, expecting another story about his encounter with Keanu Reeves. It's not just about meeting a celebrity. It's about how a moment of kindness can turn a disaster into a lesson. Helga, who had initially been furious, was now smiling beside her husband. After the big talk, Klaus had decided to moderate his alcohol consumption and, surprisingly, had started practicing meditation, inspired by a suggestion in the note from Keanu that accompanied the gift. The video of the incident still occasionally resurfaced on social media, usually accompanied by comments on how Keanu Reeves had once again proven to be the coolest guy in Hollywood. But for Klaus, the real story wasn't in the viral video. Sometimes, he reflected, holding the miniature guard, you have to make a fool of yourself in front of the whole world to learn something about yourself. His friends raised their cups in a silent toast as the snow began to gently fall outside the cafe.